Chapter 20 and 21, we'll do them together. We're at the dying Count's bedside. And I'd first like to talk about Pierre's relationship with his father. He's been away for quite a number of years, maybe even since he was a young boy. And we see Pierre in the carriage. He's coming over with Anna and he falls asleep in the carriage. And later on, when Anna leaves him, after the old Count has died and Anna leads him with his father, leaves him alone, he falls asleep there again too. And you see his whole demeanor. He's not really emotional or distraught about the whole situation. And so you wonder kind of what the relationship between his father and him was. Obviously, we know his father presumably wrote this letter to this emperor to legitimize Pierre so that he could be the sole inheritor of the state. And so there's something about the old Count that preferenced him to Pierre, but Pierre himself, there doesn't really seem to be much of emotional connection. Maybe his father kept track of his education abroad or something. It's really a part of the story we don't really know about, other than for some reason the father was keeping tabs on Pierre, preferred him over everyone else. And Pierre, for his part, he didn't really know his father, it seems. And being away, he didn't understand the customs of Russia and all the protocols and things like his peers and the people around him. And so this relationship with his father is kind of interesting, and it sort of makes sense that he's sort of almost disinterested in what's going on. So that's a kind of an interesting aspect. Further on, we get this confrontation between Prince Vasili, the eldest princess, and Anna. And they're fighting over this portfolio where there's this letter, this very particular letter that would legitimize Pierre, of which the emperor already knows exists, but it's the actual document. They literally start fighting over it. And at this time, the situation's getting quite animated. And what's interesting to me is you see these conflicting emotions in people. Like in Prince Vasili, you have a sincere devotion to do what's right, kind of a pragmatic side to him. But, you know, he has a moral compass as well to, it's not just all about just getting the will so that he's part of the inheritance, which definitely that's there, but just realizing this is what the old Count wanted, maybe in another respects, but he's sort of convinced himself maybe this was done in haste and a mistake. And so, and then also with the princess, you see this conflict of emotion, how she's fighting with Anna over this letter, and then all of a sudden one of her sisters comes into the room and she just drops it. It's like, what has happened? Did he die? And this is actually when he died. And she's very devoted at the same time. And so I just find this a very well-written, interesting interplay of how humans have all these sort of different personalities and characters simultaneously within them. And they're not all working for the same things or for the same reasons. There's contradictory and even conflicting emotions and values and purposes and plans. And it's very hard for people to just let these coexist. Usually one has to win out. It's not always the case, but it can provide a very conflicting situation for people. And we see in the end, after the Count dies, even Prince Vasili is somewhat contrite over the whole circumstance. I'll just read this little bit. The eldest prince, princess, and the Prince Vasili recovered themselves. This is after hearing maybe he had died. Now you can rejoice, said the princess, as she turned to look at Pierre. This is what you've been waiting for. And so this is also interesting because the princess totally misunderstands Pierre. The Pierre she's in conflict with is the Pierre in her imagination, not the actual Pierre who, he himself, he seems to be the one oblivious that he is most likely going to inherit all this thing. And he's the one person who's just the opposite of what the princess imagines. Sobbing, she hid her face in her handkerchief and ran out of the room. Next came Prince Vasili. He staggered onto the sofa in which Pierre was sitting and sank down onto it and covered his eyes with his hand. Ah, my friend, he murmured, taking Pierre by the elbow. And there was a weakness and sincerity in his voice that Pierre had never heard before. How greatly we sin, how we deceive, and it all ends in death. I guess I really like the layers to these characters. You know, these are not 1, 2, 3, 4-dimensional characters. You know, like this Prince Vasili, he's very much he's a very pragmatic, diplomatic guy, wanting to do what's right, interested in his own self-interest, as we all are. Sometimes ideas get carried away, then other thoughts pull him back. And so there's these continually counterbalancing moments. I just find this interesting. All these qualities within a person that sort of coexist. At times, only one is seen and one is being heard and all the others are quelled. And then something sparks it and it breaks and another personality comes to the surface. It takes a real enlightened person to let all these coexist simultaneously. And near the end, we hear a little bit more from Anna. So Anna talking to Pierre. You know, Uncle promised me only the day before yesterday not to forget Boris, but there wasn't time, meaning time to get the will changed. I hope that you will carry out your father's wish. And so for Anna, I see Anna, I wonder if you think poorly of her. Like she has a clarity of purpose that Prince Vasili doesn't have. He's struggling with these competing thoughts and virtues. And she's just, you know, she doesn't have time to pity herself. This is what needs to be done. And she seemingly has succeeded. She's been helping Pierre all this time. And in so doing also has befriended him to ask him to remember to take care of Boris. And so, I don't know, I really like the intrigue of just the layers of these characters in this way. It's easy to kind of have criticism or judgment one way or the other on any particular aspect of the story or a particular action of a person or a character, but you can see this other side as well at the same time.